Welcome back to The Great Conversation. Recently, we're driving in the car. We often do this a lot. And we came into a conversation of how differently men and women think. And so I wanted to ask Annabelle a question.
I would say different.
See? How different we think. How do men and women perceive love languages differently?
Oh, love languages.
Different.
I didn't know this is what we were talking about.
Yes.
I love love languages.
Yes. So, for instance, I am words of affirmation. You are time spent. So basically,
Not to mention, all men are touch.
A little bit of touch.
And then their other thing.
Yes.
A little bit of touch.
Okay, a lot of bit of touch. Yeah. So basically, she could shout upstairs to me in my office, "You're doing great. I love you. Best worker that ever lived." And I will be good for a week, right? Like, I could never come downstairs and then come down and see her like a week later and be like, "Oh, I love you so much. That was such a great compliment." But what happens to you if that happens?
I'm time spent. And
but not just time spent.
So I'm going to explain. There's different kinds of time spent. There's time spent people that like to do activities together.
Yes.
And they don't have to talk. As long as they're together boating. Or if they're together boating, they're good. I'm time spent. And I want that to be quality conversation.
Engage.
I want to be sitting down together, and I want to know that when I'm talking, you're listening, you're engaging, you have thoughts of your own to kind of just keep the conversation going.
Yes.
And so that obviously takes a lot of time.
Yes.
And when I don't have time spent, I'm very closed off. I don't want to be touched. I don't want to be
complimented.
I don't want to be complimented. I don't want to do anything because I don't feel loved, and I might as well just get back to my work. I'm a worker bee, and let me do what I need to do.
Yes. And so this creates an interesting dynamic where in order to get back in to where she wants time spent, I have to somehow spend time with you incognito and then kind of a little bit talk to you till we then start rolling more conversation.
And I open up more.
And then it like unravels. So it's super weird because like I could be like, "Oh, she's mad at me." And then what do I want to do? Well, I want to head back to my office, right? And then
it just keeps getting
worse. Right? And so this, literally, I just wanted to put this out there for people who might be struggling with girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, whatever it might be, or even just your child or grandchild, right? Like,
and the thing that I do with that, with our children, we don't know their love languages yet. Obviously, children need a lot of touch. It's more innate to their time of life, right? Yeah. They need that. And I know some parents say, "Well, my child doesn't need it. They're very closed off." Well, maybe that's because they haven't gotten it, and that's their protective mechanism. Yeah. Most children, they need that touch and that connection.
Yeah.
But we've also noticed that one of our children really needs words of affirmation. But that kind of seems like something that would go along with childhood. "Hey, mommy, look at this. Oh, you're doing so great. Good job." Yeah. And that just fuels him. But then there's also, do they need time spent? Well, of course, kids need time with you. So my solution is I'm really just trying to like give them all the loves of languages of love.
Language canon.
Because I don't want to miss one.
Yeah.
And they really needed that. So I'm just trying to give it to them. And then even me, I am primarily time spent, but I also like words of affirmation.
Yeah.
And gifts are nice on occasion too. And so I think that we think, oh, if it's their love language, that's all that they need. Well, that's not true. We're still humans. We're still complex. We still have many parts to our psyche.
Yeah.
And so just because I'm primarily time spent doesn't mean that I don't also need those other things in smaller portions. It's just that I mostly need time spent.
Yeah, and also like when it comes to these conversations as a man, it can be very, very intimidating to like open up and tell how you feel and tell what you need, because we don't need anything. We're men. Like, I don't really feel that way too much, but I know a lot of men do. I'm pretty open to just be like, "Oh, this is what I need." But I'm a little bit different in that way. But it was hard for me to face the idea of rejection for what I wanted. And at first you did reject it. I said, "Hey, I just need you to tell me that you're proud of me like this." And how did you first respond?
So I think I grew up in a home where my dad definitely needs words of affirmation. And my mom's very similar to me in that she doesn't just give it to anybody. She's not super good with giving words of affirmation.
Yeah.
I'm very much like my mom, and I've also been domesticated to kind of like feel that way.
Yeah.
And so when you and I got married, I was like, "You need words of affirmation? Well, oh, you're so special, honey. Like, I'm not going to give it to you because like, oh, you just need me to praise you."
Yeah.
That's just kind of, that's the cynicism that I had towards it. And I really had to lay that down. And in my commitment to you and being selfless, I had to say, it doesn't matter if I think that it's right or wrong. This is what he needs.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to care for my husband, and if I'm going to be smart in my selfishness because I want a good marriage, like
Smart selfish.
that's selfish, right? Well, okay, if I want a good marriage, then I have to do this, and so I should do this.
Yeah.
And so it's very much become more of a practice. And I think that's what we don't understand about love sometimes is we think, however love oozes out of me, that's the only way that I can give love. And sorry if you don't accept it, right? Like that's on you. I love you. I'm just loving you the way that I feel like I need to love you.
Yep.
Well, love is a practice in that it's asking the other person, how is my love being conveyed to you? Are you feeling it?
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's what you need?
Yep.
And me being selfless enough to put it into practice, I need to give words of affirmation to Ben. Yeah. Because he needs that, and that's going to turn back and help me have a better marriage.
Yeah, and it'll in turn bless you because then I will feel like you want to be around me. I will feel loved by you, and then I will in turn give you time spent because I feel like now that you understand me, you hear me, you see me, you appreciate my work, and then I'm like, okay, I want to hang out with this person, which then blesses your love tank, as it were, and you get that fulfillment of our relationship. And I think so many times it's this snowball, it's this jab for jab, right? Like you started and you said, I'm not going to give it. And then I said, well, I'm going to go upstairs then and work more because at least I feel like my work's telling me good job when it hands a few more dollars to me. Right. And so that's the danger is that it becomes this negative tit for tat where it's like, okay, you messed with me, I'll mess with you. And I'm not, you withheld on me, I'll withhold on you. And that's where, we're at 7 years now, and we are experiencing a little bit of those negative spirals. And
but
dangerous.
I think even past the frustration and the anger of the stab, 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 then as the anger subsides, then it becomes complacency, right? And then it's just stuffing, and we're fine. I didn't even know that there was anything wrong. I just don't really feel like I love you. And then time moves forward, and one day you feel like there's nothing there anymore. And to reflect all the way back to, okay, what was originally happening or not happening that led us to where we are today?
Yeah. And I would say, like, for us, it was a mix of both sides. I had to work more as we, started our journey of having children. And then you weren't feeling as loved, so you weren't feeling very complimentary of me. And those two fought against each other.
Yeah. And so my advice, I guess, would be because the question is, if you have this primary love language, that words of affirmation, if you're not just being completely ridiculous like I was, they're so easy.
Yes.
I mean, they don't take money. They don't take time. I literally just had to be willing to get over my pride and say, I love you. I know you need this. You're doing great.
I was like, I don't care if you're lying. She was like, it isn't true. I was like, I don't care. I don't care if it's not true at first, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just a practice.
So then,
don't even care.
Yeah. Obviously, if your touch, which I think most of us have, touch probably is second to our primary because as humans, we do need that. Yeah. That takes some effort. But then let's talk about, acts of service take a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Even if they're just little acts of service, you have to get outside of yourself to give to that person that needs it.
Yep.
Gifts take money, usually, unless you just make all of your gifts. But,
that takes time.
Yeah. And you still have to buy the product or the ingredient or whatever.
Yeah.
But let's talk about my advice for time spent. If you are primarily a time spent and you have a spouse that's the main provider, or even if they're just 50% the provider, where's their time? I mean, we work, we have children, there's homework, there's the house, there's laundry. Where do I get that time spent? And for me, it has been a struggle because I have to find pockets of time. I have to be satisfied when I'm not getting as much, but I still see you making some effort to give it to me. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing is I have to be willing to even go out of my way to find that time. And so my example is getting up early before everybody's up in the house, before it's time to start work. I have to be willing to say, I want time spent more than I want to be in my bed right now. Yeah. And so getting up. So I think finding ways that you can be selfless so that you can be filled in the way that you need to be filled.
Yeah. Yeah. And
because getting up early is hard for me. And I'm like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Well, it's because my tank needs to be filled. And that means I need to spend time with you and I need to have good conversation with you.
Yeah, for sure. Like we can't just stop life in the middle of the day when the children are needing everything, right? That's so true. And I think about me with like words of affirmation, I can make myself somebody who is to be complimented. I can work hard. I can do thoughtful things for you. I can get you flowers, so you can come up and say, oh my word, that was so thoughtful. Thank you for getting me flowers, right? Things like that. Oh, thank you so much for taking the boys out. I got some time by myself. You know, like that's what you said. Like sometimes you do need time by yourself. You need time spent with yourself.
I do.
And so doing that, and then I come home, she's like, oh wow, you're amazing. That was so great that you took the boys out and gave me some time. That, you know, takes effort, time on my part. That then yields me fulfillment, but you then have to be willing to give that compliment, right? So it's cyclical.
And so I think the big lesson here is that as humans, we have needs, but it's not the world's job to just fill those needs for us.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
It's not just your job to find time in your day to spend time with me.
Yeah.
We have to make ourselves desirable. You have to do things to be complimented. I have to do things to get my time spent with you. And maybe that's the way it should be. Maybe it's not, but that's the way that it is.
I love it. That's just the way it is.
That's the way the world works. So those times in my life where I've just felt unloved, well, what am I doing to help myself be loved?
Absolutely.
To be the person that wants to be loved.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Be the person you want to be with.
Why does nobody love me? Well, because you're always yelling at them. You know, not you. I'm just saying in general, like somebody might feel that. Yeah. And that's no way to go about getting your love language fulfilled. Well, anyway, I just want to ask this question. I enjoy these conversations with you. And we just want to share experiences when we have these conversations in the car and kind of unearth like little nuggets in our relationship, that things that have improved us.
We have car dates.
We do, along with the things that we're doing on the Great Conversation. These are two things we're very passionate about, is like self and personal development. And then also with that, I mean, what spawned all of this is the great books of the Western world. So they're kind of in tandem to us. So we're going to be sharing a little bit of both throughout our journey here on the Great Conversation. See you guys in the next one.